Our self-image and our habits tend to go together. Change one, and you will automatically change the other. It means this: the habits you carry, the way you wake up in the morning, the way you approach your work, the way you handle difficulty, the way you treat your time, the way you respond when no one is watching, all of it, every last habit, is a direct expression of the image you hold of yourself. Not the image you present to the world, the image you carry in the deepest, most private room of your own mind. If your life is not at the level you know it should be, if the results you are producing do not match the efforts you are making, if you keep starting and stopping, pushing and retreating, getting close and then somehow ending up back where you began, the problem is not your discipline, it is not your strategy, it is not your circumstances. The problem is your self-image, and until that changes, nothing else will, not permanently, not at the root level where real transformation lives. What the self-image actually is. The self-image is the picture, the mental portrait a man carries of who he fundamentally is, not who he is trying to be, not who he aspires to become, who he believes at the deepest and most unguarded level of his thinking that he actually is. It is built from everything that has ever happened to him, every success filed away under evidence of his capability, every failure filed under evidence of his limitation, every word of praise that landed on him when he was young. Every word of criticism that cut deeper than the speaker knew. Every morning he rose early and worked hard. Every morning he did not. Every promise he kept to himself and every promise he broke. Every time someone believed in him and every time someone did not. All of it, the whole accumulated record of a life, has been quietly constructing a portrait, and that portrait now hangs permanently in the gallery of his own mind. And every single day, every decision he makes, every opportunity he accepts or refuses, every level of effort he brings to his work is measured unconsciously and instantly against that portrait. The question his mind is always asking, beneath every conscious thought, is simply this: is what I am about to do consistent with who I am? And if the answer is yes, he moves forward, easily, naturally, without significant internal resistance. The action is aligned with the image. It flows. But if the answer is no, if what he is being asked to do or what he is considering doing is inconsistent with the portrait on the wall, he will feel resistance, doubt, a sudden flood of reasons why now is not the right time, a compelling case for caution that appears from nowhere and argues persuasively for staying exactly where he is. That is not weakness, it is not character failure, it is the self-image performing exactly the function it was built to perform, maintaining consistency, protecting the man from becoming someone different from who he believes himself to be. Most men, the portrait on the wall was painted by other hands, by people who did not know his potential, by circumstances that had nothing to do with his capacity, by a version of himself that existed before he understood what he was truly capable of. How the low self-image was built. Think about the man you are today, the beliefs you carry about what you are capable of, the ceiling you feel, even if you have never named it, above which life seems somehow not quite available to you. Think about where those beliefs began. For most men, it begins in childhood. In the earliest years, before a boy has the tools to evaluate what he is being told, before he has any framework for questioning the authority of the voices around him. In those years, a child is like new ground. Whatever is planted in him takes root easily, deeply, and with very little questioning. And what was planted in most of us was not entirely wrong. Much of it was well-intended. Parents who wanted to protect us from disappointment, teachers who were working with too many students and too little time. A community that had, by and large, accepted its own limitations and could not quite imagine or bear a boy who might exceed them. But well-intentioned words can still build a prison. And the words most of us heard, in various forms, repeated often enough that they became the narration of our early lives, were words that drew lines. Words that said, in effect, this far and not further. This is the kind of person we are. This is the kind of life available to people like us. I remember a man I met early in my career, a man of genuine intelligence, remarkable warmth, and a capacity for work that I have rarely seen matched, and he was performing at a fraction of what he was capable of. Not because of laziness, not because of a lack of desire, but because somewhere in his early years a picture had been painted of him as a man who did not quite deserve the larger things. A man who should be grateful for the modest, careful, small life. A man for whom ambition was something slightly embarrassing, slightly reaching beyond his station. He had never questioned that picture. It had simply become the truth he operated from. Then came the failures. And I want to speak carefully here because every man of any substance has a catalog of failures. The ventures that did not work, the relationships that broke. The mornings when discipline was promised and not delivered. The goals announced with confidence and abandoned quietly. Each of these events, when they occur, is absorbed by the self-image and interpreted. And the question the self-image asks when failure arrives is, what does this mean about me? The man with a healthy self-image, a man who has been taught either by a mentor or by his own deliberate work to interpret failure accurately, says, this means I need to learn. This means I need to adjust. This is not evidence of who I am. It is instruction for what I need to do differently. But the man with a wounded self-image says something very different. He says, this is consistent with who I am. This is what I expected. This is the record I have always been building. And the wound deepens, and the portrait gets a new brushstroke. Darker, more limiting, more confirming of a story he was told before he was old enough to refuse it. 5 ways a low self-image controls your life. The first way, it governs what you attempt. The self-image acts as a filter on every opportunity, every ambition, every goal a man considers. Before he has consciously evaluated the opportunity, the self-image has already rendered a verdict, consistent with who I am or not consistent with who I am. The man whose self-image is that of a man who struggles financially will find, without quite understanding why, that his ambitions always seem to stop just short of genuine financial freedom. He will work hard. He will be disciplined in many ways. But at a certain level, something pulls back. Something says, this is not available for people like me. And the pullback is not a decision. It is the self-image maintaining its portrait. The man whose self-image is that of a man who finishes what he starts will find it almost physically uncomfortable to leave important work incomplete. Not because he forces himself to finish, but because finishing is consistent with who he is, and who he is governs what he does, automatically, without effort. The second way, it determines the level at which you perform. This is one of the most studied principles in all of human performance, and yet it remains consistently ignored in practice. A man performs not at the level of his capability, but at the level of his self-image. His capability may be a 10. If his self-image is a 6, he will perform at a 6, consistently, even when he is trying to perform higher. Even when he is putting in the effort of a 10. You have seen this. You have perhaps experienced it yourself. The inexplicable plateau, the point at which progress stops, not because the work got harder, but because something inside the man is pulling him back toward the level he believes is appropriate for someone like himself. This is not weakness. It is the self-image performing its primary function, maintaining the consistency of the portrait. And here is the other side of this truth that is equally important. When a man's self-image rises, when the portrait changes, his performance rises with it. Not slightly, not incrementally, sometimes dramatically, because the constraint was never his capability. The constraint was the picture. The third way, it shapes every relationship you have. The self-image determines what you believe you deserve in relationship. It determines how you allow people to treat you, not consciously, but through the subtle signals a man gives off about what is acceptable. And people, being perceptive, respond to those signals with remarkable accuracy. The man who does not believe at his deepest level that he deserves loyalty will find himself surrounded by people who are not loyal, not because loyal people do not exist, but because his own portrait tells loyal people without words that their loyalty is not what is expected here. The man whose self-image is that of a person worthy of respect, a man who treats himself with respect, who requires it from others without demanding it, who simply carries himself as someone to whom respect is the natural order. That man finds respect arriving in his life as though it were a matter of simple gravity, because in a very real sense, it is. The fourth way, it controls how you handle adversity. The self-image contains, among its many stored beliefs, a fundamental answer to this question. What happens when things go wrong? And the answer that is stored there determines everything about how a man moves through difficulty. The man with a low self-image experiences adversity as confirmation. The difficult season arrives, and something inside him says, "I knew it. This is consistent with the kind of life available to someone like me." And that interpretation robs the difficulty of its greatest gift. Because adversity has a gift. Every man who has ever built anything of lasting substance knows this. The gift is not pleasant to receive. It does not come wrapped in encouragement. But it is real. Adversity reveals exactly what needs to be developed in the man. It is not a punishment. It is a precise, accurate, and somewhat demanding teacher. And the man whose self-image includes the belief that he is someone who grows through difficulty, that man receives the gift. He unwraps it. He learns from it. And he comes out the other side not simply having survived, but having become someone who could not have been built any other way. The fifth way, it decides what you believe is possible for your future. This may be the most consequential of all five, because the future a man works toward, the vision he carries, the goals he sets, these are all expressions of what he believes is possible. And what he believes is possible is determined almost entirely by the portrait on the wall. A man whose self-image says ordinary will set ordinary goals. And when he reaches them, the self-image will be confirmed. Yes, this is the level of life available to me. And the man whose self-image says extraordinary, not arrogant, not delusional, but genuinely, quietly, deeply convinced that an extraordinary life is consistent with who he is. That man sets goals that the ordinary man considers unrealistic. And then he reaches them, and the self-image is confirmed there too. Both men get exactly what they believe they are worth. The difference between them is not talent. It is not luck. It is the portrait. It is always the portrait. How a man changes his self-image. Changing the self-image is not the work of a single afternoon. It is not a decision made once in a moment of inspiration and then forgotten. It is a campaign. A deliberate, daily, patient campaign to replace one portrait with another. And like all campaigns worth fighting, it requires both strategy and persistence. The results, when they come, do not come gradually and incrementally. They tend to come in a surge, because the self-image is not changed by degree. It is changed by decision. And when the decision is genuine, when it reaches all the way down to the level where the portrait actually lives, the habits that follow are not the result of discipline and willpower. They flow naturally from the new image, as naturally as the old habits flowed from the old one. That is the prize, not having to force yourself to do the right thing. Having the right thing becomes simply who you are. The first practice, examine the portrait honestly. The work begins with honesty, not the comfortable, negotiated honesty most men practice with themselves, the full, unflinching, uncomfortable kind. You must look at the portrait currently on the wall and describe it accurately. In what areas of your life does the portrait show a man of genuine capability? Where does it show limitation? Where does it show a man who does not quite believe he deserves the larger things? Where does it show someone who has accepted, quietly and without ceremony, a smaller version of the life he is capable of living? Write it down if you must. There is power in writing. The act of writing something forces a specificity that thought alone can avoid. Name the portrait. Describe what is actually hanging on the wall. And then ask yourself, with full honesty, was this portrait painted by evidence or by other people's expectations? Was this painted by who I am or by who someone else decided I was before I had a say in the matter? The second practice, make the decision to see yourself differently. It is a declaration. A man standing in front of the portrait on the wall, looking at it clearly and saying, with everything he has, this picture is no longer who I am. I am done performing at this level. I am done accepting this ceiling. I am done living inside this frame that someone else built for me. That declaration must be made at a level of seriousness that most men reserve only for the gravest moments of their lives. Because it is one of the gravest moments of a man's life. The decision to become genuinely different, not to adjust the surface but to change the portrait, is among the most consequential decisions a human being can make. Make the decision. Write it down. Say it aloud if you need to. Make it specific. Name the new portrait in precise, unambiguous terms. I am a man who finishes what he starts. I am a man who produces results at the highest level I am capable of. I am a man who earns what he is worth. I am a man who treats his time with the seriousness it deserves. Specific, concrete, non-negotiable. The third practice, feed the new portrait daily. The new portrait must be fed every single day. This means deliberate attention to what enters your mind, particularly in the first hour of the morning and the last hour before sleep. These are the hours when the self-image is most receptive, most impressionable, most easily shaped. Guard them with the seriousness of a man who understands what is at stake. Read the biographies of men who built extraordinary lives from ordinary beginnings, not for entertainment, for evidence. Evidence that the portrait can be changed. Spend your most important hours in the company of people who see you as you are working to become, not as you have been. The people around you are either feeding the old portrait or the new one. There is no neutral. Choose deliberately. The fourth practice, act as the new portrait would act today. Rising when that man would rise, working with the discipline that man would bring, handling difficulty with the composure that man would carry, treating his word as binding in the way that man would treat his. Because here is the mechanism that changes the self-image faster than anything else I have ever studied. The self-image is changed by evidence, and every time you act in alignment with the new portrait, you deposit a piece of evidence into the record. A piece of proof that says, this is consistent with who I am now. And the more evidence you accumulate, the more the new portrait becomes, not a decision you made, but a description of who you actually are. The old portrait was built by accumulated experience. The new one is built the same way. One act, one kept promise, one disciplined morning, one honest decision at a time. It is not fast, but it is certain. And it is the only way change that lasts is ever truly made. The fifth practice, guard the portrait against old attacks. In those moments, the work is to recognize what is happening, to see the old portrait attempting to hang itself back on the wall, and to say, not with panic, but with the quiet authority of a man who has made a decision, no, that picture no longer belongs here. This is not a moment for self-criticism. Self-criticism in those moments feeds the old portrait, not the new one. It is a moment for the steady, calm reassertion of the decision already made. I know what I have decided about who I am. This moment of difficulty is not evidence against the new portrait. It is simply the territory that every man crosses on his way to becoming who he has decided to be. The man on the other side. I want you to imagine, as concretely as you can, the man who exists on the other side of the new portrait, the man who has done this work, not the man who read about it, nodded at it, agreed with it in principle, and then went back to the old habits. The man who actually waged the campaign, who fed the new portrait daily, who acted in alignment with it even when it was uncomfortable, who crossed the difficult territory and came out the other side. What does that man look like? Not in terms of what he owns or what titles he carries. What does he feel like? What is the quality of his relationship with himself? What happens inside him when he wakes in the morning, not on the best mornings, but on the ordinary ones? Does he feel like a man in alignment with who he is, or a man in constant tension with the gap between who he is and who he believes he should be? The man on the other side of the new portrait has something that cannot be purchased and cannot be given. It can only be built. It is the quiet, unshakable confidence of a man who knows, not hopes, not wishes, but knows that he is growing into the fullest version of what he was given the capacity to become. He does not need external validation. He does not need applause or recognition or the approval of others. He carries the validation inside himself in the form of the new portrait, a portrait built from evidence, from kept promises, from the accumulation of days lived in alignment with his highest values and his clearest vision. That man faces difficulty differently, not because difficulty becomes smaller, it does not, but because his relationship to himself has changed. He approaches the hard thing not as a man who is unsure whether he has what it takes. He approaches it as a man who has already proven through the daily work that he does. And that difference, that small but absolute difference in the self-image, produces a life that looks, from the outside, like something extraordinary. It is not extraordinary luck. It is not extraordinary talent. It is the ordinary man who changed the portrait. That is all. That is everything. The self-image and the habits tend to go together. That is where we began today. And I want to end there, because in the full weight of that truth lives everything we have covered. You did not choose the portrait that was painted of you in the years before you could hold the brush. You did not choose the words that were spoken over you, the failures that were filed as evidence against you, the ceiling that was built around your early ambitions by people who could not imagine a life beyond their own. But you are holding the brush now. You have been holding it for some time, and every day, every single ordinary day, you are adding to the portrait. Whether you do so deliberately or by default, the painting continues. The question is only who the painter is. Take the brush deliberately. Paint the man you have decided to become. Feed that portrait with everything you have, with the books you read, the company you keep, the actions you take in the hours when no one is watching. And trust, not with the thin trust of a man hoping for the best, but with the deep trust of a man who understands the mechanism, that as the portrait changes, the life will follow. It always does. It has always done. It will for you. Change the self-image. Watch the habits change with it. Watch the results change with them. Watch the life, the full, unheld, unreserved life you were built to live, begin to take its shape around the man you have decided finally and permanently to become. That is enough for today. The work begins now.